As Siegen is full of Dunkaroo cereal and ready to go, Devin is just excited that Count Chocula has been seen on the shelves. And as always, when we record an episode of the Say Report, Fruit Brute looks on, perhaps giving his permission to continue, or perhaps waiting to strike whenever a mistake is made. Either way, welcome to the latest episode of the Say Report. I'm your host, Evan Decker, and joining me, my host companion, Siegen Sarowick. Siegen?
I thought lightning was gonna strike, and you were gonna step out to like. Fruit looks on in anticipation.
It'd be awesome. Imagine, oh God, Fruit Brute. I think he's there just sort of as our guardian angel. I look up and I can see him. There's also a box of Mega Man cereal that I feel like we bought for 2018 and then just never opened.
Yeah. The Dunkaroo cereal, man, it's something else. It's really weird. It's funny that you had offhandedly said Cookie Crisp earlier, and that's actually what this is. It feels like it's Cookie Crisp, only instead of chocolate chip cookie cereal, it is rainbow, like rainbow sugar cookies.
So before our last week's episode, our brunch chat, I had gone to Market Basket, which is sort of what I do before we have one of those Sunday morning episodes. I coerce family members to go with me to Market Basket, or Demolis as they were originally called, and based on a curse on all New Englanders, we have to call things by their first names.
Oh, of course, what they were originally before they got changed over 8 times, right?
Yeah. And it was the first time that I was able to actually try the new Dunkaroos since they were rebooted and re-released.
Yeah, I have also partaken of actual Dunkaroos. I want to put that out there, but sorry, yes.
No, that's exactly what I got to do, and they're not as good as I remember. But I think the big problem with it is that it's only the circle cookies with the D logo on them, which that's totally my brand. But I need something shaped like a kangaroo for it to be a Dunkaroo.
I feel like they used to be hardier, right? Like maybe it was just my wee little boy hands that made them seem bigger, but there is definitely something to the idea that the cookie does not feel like it is the same cookie as it used to be, and therefore it is a inferior experience.
Well, it's definitely because it's not the same type of cookie. It was graham crackers. It was the thickness and consistency of almost a Teddy Graham that you'd be getting in there.
And you get big old Teddy Grahams, those big boys.
Yeah, and it wouldn't be one of those situations where you'd get a bunch of cookies. I feel like because of the size of the cookie to frosting ratio was perfect. I would always have enough cookies and enough frosting. But with these thin little dudes, it's like all I have is cookies, and they're not even very good cookies. Yeah. What it seems like they've done is they've gone to Fun Dip and they're like, the technology to create the sticks, right? We need that in cookie form. Of course, I say that as the person who would eat the Fun Dip sticks on their own, and then after snorting the sugar powder, right? I don't know what that powder smells like. I mean, tastes like. I know what it smells like.
Yeah.
Lots
I hate
of fun.
cocaine. I just love the smell of it. Right? Isn't that the old Dennis Leary bit?
Yeah, that is.
Well,
Denny Leary.
The Dunkaroo cereal is first of all, the box is extremely bland. There's not even a kangaroo to be seen on this box anywhere. It literally just says Dunkaroos with a crazy 90s background and then a bowl of the cereal. The crazier thing is the fucking back of the box. They have nailed the 90s back of the box aesthetic where there is a lot going on. First of all, 2/3 of it is taken up by them saying this was then, this is now, comparisons of these are the things we used to do back when Dunkaroos were out the first time, and texting, and it used to be a pager, and you had to text numbers to, and if you flip the numbers upside down, then they were words. Their example is hello, but we all know we texted each other boobs. And then of course then there's texting now, which is just a bunch of just emojis and shit, right? But the crazier fucking thing, the thing that has been getting me since I bought the box, is there is a quiz at the bottom, and it's silly ass quiz, here is a word from the 90s, what does it mean, as if, and then you have to match it up with its answer, which is not gonna happen. I believe is the correct answer.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah.
Or B, yeah, I'm totally right. Okay, anyway, but the craziest fucking thing is the headline for it is Pop Quiz Hot Shot, which is a legitimately great 90s reference, but really, Dunkaroos? That is the reference you went with? Speed?
I mean, let's be honest. The Dunkaroo cereal is basically speed. I feel like that's the way that they're getting away with it. I'm going to have to try to find Dunkaroo cereal, which is good because my search for the elusive Count Chocula and the 50th anniversary celebration Monster Mash cereal have so far been fruitless.
Well, that's because you got to go back to Fruit Brute.
Yeah, I know. Well, Fruit Brute, I was so happy. It was 2014 that they put Yummy Mummy and Fruit Brute out, which that makes sense, right? And maybe not 2014. Maybe it was like 2016. It was one of those. I think it was for the 45th anniversary. So yeah, if this is the 50th, that sort of checks out. And Yummy Mummy and Fruit Brute are the ones that I loved as a kid because like the flavor was delicious. Not like, I think Boo Berry is too berry-y. Do you remember Pepsi Blue, which is also back out on shelves, right?
Yes. Man. Yeah. Hell yeah. Pepsi Blue is. Pepsi Blue was the first time that I, as a child, drank a soda and went, ooh, too much.
And Sejan lost a little bit of his innocence that day as Fruit Brute looked on. But yeah, which I gotta tell you, there's part of me that like really wants to get a Pepsi Blue. I've seen it a bunch of times, but if pandemics are for anything, it should be for like real resolutions, right? Like a New Year's resolution, you keep that going for maybe a week, maybe like 3-6 months. But like my pandemic resolution, I'm not drinking Pepsi products anymore.
You know what? Good on you. I accidentally ordered a Pepsi the other day, and I was never more angry with myself. I ordered something at a drive-thru, and I could it was one of those situations where, like, you could kind of hear what the person was saying back to you, like, and so you just, at some point, you're just like, yes, fine, whatever, I want to get this order over with. So at some point in there, they must have said, is Pepsi okay? And I must have said, yeah, fine. And they handed me the product. I saw then on it that it was a Pepsi establishment, and I instantly was like, I didn't just order a Coke, did I? But I didn't. It didn't stop me. I did. Then I drank it, and then I was just like, I was so mad at myself. I was like, how could you let this happen?
Yeah, like it's one of those situations where, like, first of all, I have never been to a place where I've ordered a Coke. You never hear someone order a Pepsi, and then the response is Coke all right? Yeah, Coke is preferred. Are you? Yes.
There are places in this country where that is what they refer to all soda as, is Coke. When they're saying, I want to go out and get a Coke, they might not actually mean Coke. They just might mean soda. Like, yes, nobody out there does that with Pepsi, though.
Nobody does that with Pepsi, right? And that it's just one of those situations. So, like, I don't want to compromise anymore. Of course, it's not that I don't want to support PepsiCo. It's just, if I want a basic cola, I want Coca-Cola. Or I'd go for RC Cola, which I recently did a deep dive on RC Cola because I always wondered why everybody treated it like the bargain brand.
Right.
And it really is later than Coke and Pepsi. First came Coke, then came Pepsi in the 1800s, right? Both of them are over 100 years old. And then RC Cola came around in 1905. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, but I like RC Cola. Like, I grew up drinking RC Cola, and it makes me happy. Yeah.
The real question is, does anybody out there drink Moxie? Like, actually drink Moxie? I feel like people buy Moxie in order to, like, clean the fucking batteries in their cars, right? Like, when they got to get the buildup off.
I don't know if you ever met Greg. There was a sophomore when I don't know. He was younger than us. He was, I guess, 2 years younger than me in high school. And
I thought you meant Broken Leg Greg, because that dude was something else. But
Broken Leg Greg is definitely a different person.
Okay.
This is I can't think of Greg's actual last name right now, and that's fine. But he was 2 years younger than me when he came to Coventry High School, and he like just kind of weirdly got just folded into the group. Like, I don't know how it happened. It's just like, hey, you're new? Come on, join the club, right? And this kid, he was part of theater, so he was up in Maine when this guy did a whole joke, like, it was a comedian who did a whole bit about drinking Moxie, and then he decided that was kind of going to be his thing, and he would drink Moxie all the time.
I
Like,
mean, look, man. I get it. Like, you're at that point where you're a freshman in college, and you're trying to find things that kind of define yourself and stick out. And some people go towards some really horrible shit, like Moxie.
but but the truth of the matter is, if you ask, is there anybody who actually drinks Moxie? It's Greg, last name forgotten.
That's fair to
And
him because we don't want Moxie to go like Bart, like knocking his door down, being like, "Please, you have to buy more."
you're the only one we make it for. I mean, like, people up in Maine, like a lot of people in Maine prefer it as a soda. I don't get it. I don't understand the, like, I'm trying to think of what the flavor comes from. Someone once told me, but yeah, no, Moxie is not one of those. Moxie is also one of those 100-year-old sodas. Like, let's give credit where credit's due. But I don't know. I don't know how it survives.
I mean, I once knew a woman that would literally like lecture and berate you for the rest of the night if you ever called Fanta the bargain basement soda. Like these like weird like regional like sodas get like get real. People get real serious. Like up in the Wisconsin area, you Fanta is like a sacred thing. Like you mention Fanta, and if you in any negative context, and people will like, well, they'll send the Juggalos after you is what they'll do.
You're thinking of Fago, actually,
Fago,
not Fanta.
no, Fago, not Fanta.
Yeah.
Fanta's a Coke product that they used to sell in Mexico. Sorry, but now they sell it here like it's fucking candy soda, and I love it. No, I meant Fago. Yes,
Yeah.
You're totally correct.
And
Yeah, no,
Fago is another
Fago.
one of those ones that it feels like it is a bargain basement brand. Like it was probably started in the 60s as like a thing. But Fago has a long, rich history as well. And of course, if you're a Fago fan, even like discounting the whole juggalo of it, right? Being a fan of ICP, and that might be the only reason you know what Fago is. Like, Fago is one of those companies that was doing all flavors of soda before it was a novelty thing. They were just like, we need to figure out how to put every flavor into a bottle of soda because that's what people truly want, and that's the Fago difference.
And so, like, you move to the Midwest and people start talking about Fago around you, right? Especially if you move up to the Michigan area and all that, right? They love to, like, present it as if it's, like, a cultural thing that they are bestowing upon you. Like, hey, we have a soda brand, but guess what? They do crazy flavors, like strawberry and pineapple. And I know this is not a normal thing. I'm not saying this because I think that this is something everybody has in their life, but I had soda delivery when I was growing up. Did you ever have that?
One of the best stories of the family legacy, right? Like, we're talking like Decker, Salisbury, family legacy, hushed tones, is that my mom's Aunt Hilda, her house was a delivery for the Coca-Cola truck. They drank so much Coke that the truck that would go and deliver pallets to supermarkets would stop at Aunt Hilda's house, and they would get pallets of Coke delivered.
I mean, they had the production company right there in Providence, so
Yeah.
like having people around that were buying that much Coke, I can totally believe that back
Like-
in the day, right?
like
But this was we used to do Monroe Dairy milk, right? Like that's a huge thing in the Rhode Island and Mass area and stuff, and we had that for a long time. And at some point, they partnered with a company that would do glass bottle delivery soda. And they would be like, I'd say like 24-ounce like bottles of individual sodas, and they had Coke. Well, they didn't have Coke; they had cola, but cola and root beer. Then they would do like birch beer, which was always my favorite. But then they would do silly shit like strawberry and pineapple and blueberry sodas and bubblegum soda and things like that. And my parents were. Despite the fact that they were buying us the 12 bottles of soda every 2 weeks for my brother and I to just consume, they were at least good about the idea that, like, look, we're not going to do the gross shit, though, all right? We're at least going to get the stuff that Dad can mix with his drink. All right, fine. like that was so. But every now and then, as like a special treat, we'd be able to pick like 1 or 2 bottles that were just ridiculous, right? Especially if we were going to have like a sleepover. My mom would be like, all right, a couple weeks before, like, pick out like 4 or 5 bottles that you and the guys want to each eat, and you can each just have your own fucking bottle. I'll give you a big old silly straw to put in it, and you guys can drink that all night and go play out in the yard until 2 o'clock in the morning for all I care. And so I used to drink all of these weird flavors of soda growing up. So I moved out to the Midwest, and everybody was like, we got Fago, and they've got this really weird tutti frutti flavor, and I was just like, uh-huh. I like pineapple soda. Like I'm down on all this. I'm down, and I'm just like drinking it, and people are just like they the idea of the cultural impact of Fago being lost on me was, I think, the most offensive way I could have accepted Fago, because people either reacted two ways: they see it and love it, and then everybody's like, "Yay, like you're part of the family," or they see it and hate it, and then for the rest of their days there, they have to hear about why they're wrong about Fago. And I was nowhere. I was on neither side of that scale. I was just like, yeah, soda.
Yeah, it's soda. It comes in different flavors. That's a thing that soda's always kind of done.
We as human beings like to put really shitty liquids into our body in order to make ourselves feel better. For some people, it's booze. For other people, it's soda.
I mean, it's the same basic thing, right? It's all about the sugars. So,
Yeah,
yeah, it's one of those things. Like that's a really good point, because I think of like all the, like, because you have a Yacht Club soda in North Providence, and then like Hosmer Mountain Soda, which is right over the line in Willimantic, Connecticut, and then as you go deeper into Connecticut, you have like Fox and Point. So I have had like 3 different small batch birch beers available
yeah.
to me my entire life.
Yeah.
And then, like, as you go further south and you start seeing, like, cream soda in different colors, and it doesn't mean anything.
Red,
it's just we put blue dye into our cream soda.
red cream soda out here. I swear to God, it's like every fast food joint you go into, they've got Coke, Sprite, High C, all this shit, and then the last thing is always a handwritten white paper slapped on red soda. Like, God, they're probably making it in the back.
That reminds me of the very first Devon and Siegen adventure, Devon and Siegen Go to White Plains. And we stopped at that weird fast food place that it was sort of like the McWandles or whatever it's called in Coming to America. Like, it was very much trying to appear like there's thousands of these, but we were in the only one that's ever existed in the entire world. And they had red soda on the soda machine, and I got it, and I'm like, oh god, this is it, right? This is how the adventure's gonna end, is I'm gonna drink too much of this and my heart's going to explode. Because this is the flavor I've been searching for my whole life.
Yeah, well, a red soda overdose. It's a shame. Oh, man. Yeah, the thing is out here is because of the lack of drinking, shall we say, soda shops are huge out here. So like weird sodas and everything like that. You get a whole bunch of local franchises, 3 or 4 places in the area that like make their brand, and then like every now and then you'll find one of them has branched out into the local grocery stores and things like that. So like there's some heavy duty soda wars that go on out here in Utah, and it is legitimately because this is what they do on dates, is they go to cookie places and soda places. This is they go out to these drink shops and things like that, because nobody goes to a bar out here.
I have to tell you something, Siegen, you're really selling me hard on Utah. Like, if I could get over my heavy like disdain for religion, I might give it a shot. Because soda and that sounds like heaven to me.
You kind of have to balance that out against the literal fog of fire smoke and house smoke that has come up from California over the last weekend. I watched, no joke, it looked like a war movie on my street, because I live, I think I've mentioned this before, I live about halfway up the mountain. Like, it's not very far up the mountain, but it's far enough that you go uphill to get to my house, right? And so we can see out over the valley, and you could see this plume of smoke over like a matter of an hour, just traveling across the entire valley, covering the city, and then slowly climb up the mountain, and then everything for 3 days was just yellow. Like, the sun was just, it looked like there was a fucking Ridley Scott filter on everything out here. And it is because of the fires in California and in Oregon and stuff like that you get a cold front that comes in off the ocean, and it brings all of the smoke over here, and then we're the mountains, so it just sits on us because it can't get past the mountains. So it has been impossible to breathe for 3 days. I have been hiding in my room with an air filter and an air conditioner blowing air out of the room. Like, it's been a fucking nightmare, to be entirely honest. So, if you want to combat that just so that you can get some fun soda flavors, like, sure, all more power to you.
No, that seems like if Mad Max were about him trying to get, I don't know, a Tutti Frutti Fago instead of trying to help a gas truck move. That ultimately is full of sand. Spoilers for Mad Max: The Road Warrior. I think it's just called The Road Warrior, and the Mad Max has been added like later on as history tried to educate people that this is a trilogy, guys. There's 3 movies and now a 4th movie, which that's something that we got to talk about, but I'm not prepared to talk about because I didn't give you
Mad Max Fury Road.
No. Trilogies. Something that Will shared with me, and Will and I had a lovely discussion, and now that I'm thinking about it, I think that we could have a fun discussion, but there's some reading that I think you would need to do before we go down that road. So here's a teaser
Research for this show? What are you talking about?
No, it's not even research. I just need you to look at the 15 trilogies that they offer, and then we can discuss them. So it's something for people to the people who created the infogram that Will sent me.
Okay, you didn't tell that part. You just said they, the overpowering body of American movie, is just going to say to us, like, these are the 15 trilogies that shall exist. None more, none less.
And I think that it could be a pretty fun discussion. So look forward to that next episode of the Say Report. And the fact of the matter is, we have been having a lovely conversation. It has been a lovely day. And I feel like we're dancing around a topic that this show has to cover. We have to talk about something that happened last week. And based on the title of the episode, I think you know what's coming. And based on Siegen getting very quiet, I think he knows what's coming.
Yeah, you named this one Sayward Sword, right? That was the name that you chose for this week. So we're going to talk about some Zelda, everybody. I'm excited. Like, let's get into some complicated feelings I have about Skyward Sword. Loving it. But, you know, I would be a fool to ignore some of the issues it has. Right? Is this what we're doing?
No, this is actually the Sayicide report. I haven't been able to delve into Skyward Sword enough for the Sayward Sword episode. So I did get a Loftwing amiibo today.
Nice.
And that was just because Loftwing may be in stock at Best Buy. So I went to Best Buy, it said out of stock, and then I said put in cart, and it shipped to me. And I'm like, okay, magic?
It does one of those things that late game Zeldas really excel at. When they're good, they excel at, and that is the style and the characterizations are so good that you start to forgive a lot of the bigger flaws. It's I will point at things like Breath of the Wild in that case, right? Like there are things about that game that are heavily flawed that I will completely ignore because I don't mind the walking through empty fields for an hour when they look as beautiful as they do, that sort of thing. But you know, we'll talk more about Zelda as you get more into it, because I am not even that far into it either, and I've put 15 hours into it last count, and I know that I'm not even cracking it yet. I think I mentioned I'm playing it with the family, so you know we're taking our time and handing the controller off and stuff and just enjoying the hell out of it. But yeah, we'll talk more about it.
I'm waiting for it to go on sale, so I'll probably get it around Black Friday, if not as an actual gift for Christmas. Because I don't really want to spend the money on Zelda games anymore, because I've found that it inherently affects how I feel about the game if I know that I spent the money on it.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Is that like?
I mean, you look, man. Saying that you do not have strong enough feelings to go out and spend $50 or $60 on this game, that says a thing, and so that is interesting. We should talk about that sometime. That being said, I'm never going to push you to spend money on a thing you're not interested in. So,
no. And I understand that, but it's one of those things that it's kind of the only Zelda game that I've never played is Skyward Sword, which is incredible and kind of crazy when you think about it, because I've played like weird ones like Triforce Heroes on the DS.
And this one is very much a mea culpa because for that exact thing, because you are one of many people that I would call a Zelda fan that have had that experience where Skyward Sword just kind of never happened for them for one reason or another. Like, there are plenty of people out there that, like, and I'm not the kind of person that's like, you haven't played every game in the series, you're not a true fan. Like, fuck that. But I know plenty of people out there that love themselves some Zelda, literally have like Triforces tattooed on their bodies, that just never played Skyward Sword because it just came out at a terrible time, both in like the Wii's lifetime and honestly ours. Like, as a generation, it just came out at a really weird point in our generation as humans.
I mean, for me, it was, I don't want to have to buy another Wii remote, just to play this game. because I've only ever owned one Wiimote, which is crazy to me. Like that I actually just said those words, that I've only ever owned the Wiimote that came with my Wii that when I bought it on release day. That's kind of nuts to me. But like everybody else had them. So if I wanted to have a party, make sure you bring your Wiimote if you want to play. And people did that. Like that wasn't hard to get people to do.
Oh no, that was totally the Wii system and the Wii U. Honestly, for me, was somebody else has it. I don't need to spend the money on it. Yeah. And you know that is, and I didn't play a lot of games that came out on those two systems because of those, because of that lack of existence in my life. But like lack isn't even fair because I wasn't missing it while I didn't have it. But anyway, man, like you want to talk about some Suicide Squad?
I don't want to talk about some Suicide Squad.
I'll be honest, I don't think we're going to talk about it as long as you think we're going to, because I think you and I both feel pretty lukewarm on the goddamn thing, right?
Right, but it's just one of those things that like one of the cornerstones of the show is discussing DC movies.
Well, and I think it's telling, right? Is that my exact feelings are, I had a decent enough time with this movie. I'd probably watch it again if it was on TV in front of me, but I won't go out of my way to watch it. That's all I really kind of feel about it. And I think, I know this, it comes from the Snyder Cut. Everything in the DC universe, everything in our personal history of the DC filming universe. What is it? The
DCEU, yeah.
What's the
yeah.
Extended? Okay.
Extended,
so,
yeah.
Yeah, but everything in that was kind of constantly building in me this sense of like I couldn't figure out what, and then finally watching the Snyder Cut I realized what it was, and it was disappointment. And that idea that I don't have the brain space or the heart anymore to worry about DC movies in the same way that I feel about a Marvel movie.
Right.
I just don't.
Yeah, and well, clearly I'm right there with you. Clearly, like, this is a conversation that I felt we had to have, but also in a really strange way, I feel like it's going to close the book on the way that we've examined the DCEU on the Say Report. So it feels like it's sort of important in our own personal journeys, as well as the journey of the DCEU as a whole. Because this is really the last film that has any remnants of that pre-Justice League feel attached to it. That pre-Justice League stank, really, to talk about things.
I think, like, man, I hope you're right. The problem is, and like, I mean, I've already called his name out once, so I'm just gonna keep doing it. But the second that you show me the lead executive producers on this film, and I see that it's Snyder and his wife. I apologize that I don't know her name
Deborah.
right now, but the fact that the two of them are the first two listed EPs on this film, like, goes to your point, but also makes me wonder if that's not going to just keep being the case here. Like, there's just going to be this sense that Warner Brothers has hitched their horse to this particular figure, and it is just, they're never going to be able to get it to move on until they get away from that. And I don't know how they do, because I don't know what kind of contracts they're stuck in. I don't know what kind of concepts they already have in the works, what they're trying to save and what they're trying not. I mean, like, I keep hearing bits and pieces about a possible Flash movie still coming. Like, is that happening? I keep hearing bits and pieces about what they want to do with I can't even think of the other one, Aquaman, right? Like, things like that. Like, I just, like, I know that there's still some of that stuff in the works. So, like, I hope that they can finally move past this. My hope is that one of the best things that I think this movie did is that while it definitely takes place in a universe that could be connected to these other movies, it does not do fuck all to really reference or depend on any of these other movies. And it really doesn't do anything to really set up any future films. Like, it does a very beautiful job of existing on its own. And I applaud it for that. Like, because one of DC's biggest issues, you and I have talked a lot about how DC movies have never really had this sense in them that it's about the movie now. It's always about the movie what's next. Like, what's the anticipation for the coming films? And the fact that they were able to not do that this time was something that was very cool. Like, so I hope you're right, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, spoilers for the Suicide Squad, they just might come out. We haven't said it yet. We haven't spoiled anything up to this point. So if you are still waiting to see it, then nothing we've said could ruin that for you. I just want to give myself the blanket like coverage in terms of things that might come up and that I might talk about. But yeah, it really is that feeling that I'm now looking forward is kind of the wrong phrase, but I guess the next time that I'll jump in ready to sort of weigh in on what's going to happen is with Robert Pattinson as Batman.
I mean, yeah. And what's great about that is so far removed from anything that we've seen so far. I mean, Matt Reeves and doing this universe that is clearly his own, not the DCEU. Also being extremely open about the fact that he's hoping that this is his own thing and isn't going to have to bend to any other whims. Now, directors will say that, but whatever happens behind the scenes, and we'll see. But I cannot imagine that there's going to be some moment in that where Henry Cavill shows up as Superman, right?
I certainly hope not. Like I said, that you could feel sort of the trappings of the world that came before Justice League, because Suicide Squad was one of those films that came a year before Justice League. It happened in 2016, and then Justice League releases in 2017, and very prominently, Batman, Ben Affleck, features in the end credit sequence of Suicide Squad to kind of be like, shut this fucking down, Amanda, because I'm putting together the Justice League. He doesn't say those exact words, but that's...
I mean, I was going to say, he also shows up in the first 20 minutes of the movie.
Oh, yeah, that's right, I forgot.
And Ezra Miller shows up as the Flash, and on top of that, the conversation that she has with, that Amanda Waller has with everybody at the table is prompted because they're all there to discuss the idea that they live in a world after Superman has died. So it is consistently reminding you that it is in that world.
Right. And that's why my first reaction to the Suicide Squad was I really did myself a disservice by rewatching David Ayer's 2016 film. And just because I reminded myself that it didn't exist as its own island, right? Because I feel like that's what a lot of the response from people is what the hell is this film? It doesn't fit in with anything. And it's like, no, it kind of fits in huge with what's going on. We see...
I would, just to... The caveat to that, I would say the criticism I heard is that it felt shoehorned in. That things like Batfleck showing up felt like those were afterthoughts, and I think if I remember correctly, actually were like reshoots and things like that. So I just want to make sure that it isn't that the movie felt like it didn't. It like, where does this movie exist? We all understood where they wanted us to think it existed. The criticism was it doesn't fit there, though. Just to say, just want to make sure that that's all right.
I guess maybe after seeing the Snyder Cut finally, it made more sense to me in certain ways. Like, watching it again, I wasn't looking forward to rewatching the film, right? My mother had never seen it, though, and she was interested in the Suicide Squad. And honestly, I'm like, maybe she doesn't need to watch it. Maybe she doesn't need to see the original one. And then I saw that it's not just Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn that's going to be in James Gunn, The Suicide Squad, but Amanda Waller is there. And at that point, I also didn't know that Rick Flag and Captain Boomerang were going to show up in this film as well. But just seeing Amanda Waller, it's like, well, fuck. Suicide Squad, for all that it is really an Amanda Waller origin story. If you want to understand that character, you kind of need to see Suicide Squad. And that's when I'm like, Mom, we just need to sit down and watch it some Sunday while the Olympics are on, an event that neither of us care about, and we'll just do the 2 hours and go from there. And rewatching it with her, like, she got the parts of it that I felt she needed. She knew who Amanda Waller was, that, like, she's the craziest one of them all, right?
Right.
That she's going to do whatever it takes. And then what I took away from it was, this is a very human reaction and governmental reaction to everything that we've seen up to this point in the DCEU. And that meant something to me in a strange way.
No, I can appreciate that. It's one of, look, we're going to reiterate a bunch of stuff we've said in the past because we are talking about a movie that is a sequel, remake, reboot of a movie that we have talked about a lot in the past. Suicide Squad versus the Suicide Squad. David Ayer's Suicide Squad is one of those few DCEU movies that when I walked out of it, I was still very much just like, I'm just not there. I'm not with you on this. I at least could admit that there was things going on in that movie that were worth it. Amanda Waller being one of them. The introduction of the idea of the Suicide Squad and there being other powered figures and things like that. The building of the world and stuff. I enjoyed all of that. Hell, even the weird additions of Batfleck, like fleshing out his Batman felt really good and all that sort of stuff. There was... So what you just said, I'm trying to make sure I'm not wandering too far away from it. The idea that it builds the world and that it fits, it helps you kind of get an idea of what everybody besides the Supes are doing is definitely one of the better elements of that movie for sure. I don't think it's enough to because you say like it's a really good introduction to Amanda Waller, right? This is just an example of what you're talking about, is that it is a very human reaction. So the idea of introducing Amanda Waller as this powerful government figure who, I'm not going to take credit for this. Like somebody watching the movie with me the other day said, she's a supervillain, but she's a supervillain that realizes that the best way to get away with being a supervillain is to work in hand with the American government. Like, and that is a phenomenal like view on her. Like, definitely one that I would love to sit down and drink a beer and like pull apart, right? Like, I love that. And so clearly the movie does what it's supposed to do in introducing that character and in introducing that concept. And like, but to that, I ask, who cares? Because then no other movie really utilizes her until this one, and this one doesn't do anything new with it.
They actually do. They actually do a lot to weaken her. Yeah. There's that moment in the new one where her underlings, right? And the only one that I know that is there definitely is Jose Economos, played wonderfully by Steve Agee.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
okay. I thought you were naming another actor. I was like,
no. That's the character that he's playing. It's Jose Economos, and like perfect, Like, there was a lot of fan service in this, and, like, very obviously, like, we're not going to tell you who this is, but if you're kind of familiar with these characters, you'll understand who they are, right? Mm-hmm. And he played that role very, very well. But, like, she wipes out her team in the first movie with no regard. Yeah. The fact that she would be like, oh, you knocked me out on this one, and their punishment would just be to go and reclaim the not dead peacekeeper.
Yeah.
Like, no, like that's less than what she would do before. And it's strange. But then the biggest issue with this whole film is that Will Smith is not there. But the script really expected him to be there. And not so much Will Smith.
I like that. I like the script expected him to be there, yeah.
Not so much Will Smith, but the character of Deadshot. Mm-hmm. And as I saw the movie, and I'm like, look, Idris Elba's great, and I'm fine that, like, that's a thing that unfortunately happens in comic books, is that, like, for every Dr. Octopus, there are, like, 4 or 5 other villains who have extra limbs of some kind. But they're not Dr. Octopus. Yeah. It's just like, oh, Dr. Octopus was busy, so we'll use this guy for this episode.
To the movie's credit, they make the joke themselves when they introduce Bloodsport, right? Like when they introduce his whole power set and all that, the language that Waller uses, she then not 10 minutes later uses the exact same cadence and phrasing to explain Peacekeeper.
Yeah.
Peacekeeper. Yeah, and the movie calls it out. Elba delivers it beautifully. Where he's like, "Now wait a fucking minute. You just said that
you're having a laugh, right?"
Yeah, right. Like, so I get what you're saying, and I'm with you on it. But it would be unfair of us to not point out that the movie does seem to actually acknowledge this.
Right. No, and that's the thing. And the fact that they acknowledge it, it'd be completely fine and understandable. But like, I have no connection to Bloodsport's daughter. It doesn't mean anything that Bloodsport's daughter has started criminal things and stole a watch. But
Right.
if Deadshot's daughter, who's a big deal in the first movie, is now suddenly a criminal because of the actions of her father, like, that's leverage. And of course, after what happened, I don't remember the city from Suicide Squad. I kept telling myself I'd look it up, but
Mid-City, Midway.
It is, yeah, right. So Mid City and Central City. Central City. That's
No, it's Midway City. I'm pretty sure is what they call it. That's the other.
Oh, okay.
I will look this up because
I think
I watched it the other night and I was laughing because I was like, why is this unnamed? This because I was like, Midway City seems like a really obnoxious not naming a city in a world full of made up cities.
I've made up city names. But regardless, so why would he want to jump back onto the Suicide Squad after surviving that mission against a literal demon, right, in the Enchantress? Yeah. So it would make sense why Amanda Waller would need to leverage his daughter against him to get him to suit up and rejoin Task Force X.
Right,
like,
right.
I don't know anything about Bloodsport, but it really just feels like, oh, we can't get Will Smith for this. His schedule won't allow for it. So they originally wanted to recast Idris Elba as Deadshot, and then decided, no, what if this does really well and we need to do a third movie and Will Smith is available? We can't write him out that way, right? We need to still allow Will Smith to come back.
Yeah, part of it is also I love that you're not going there, but there also had to be a moment where everybody's like, let's just replace him with Idris Elba, and somebody else went in the room and was just like, probably not a good idea to just say we're just going to replace our one leading black actor in this universe with just another black actor. Maybe we make them different characters, guys. We don't act like they're literally interchangeable.
But then they didn't really do that with the script. And and that's the problem.
They didn't do anything in the script. Yeah, no, exactly. And then so somebody in the room was smart enough to say maybe we shouldn't do that, but they were clearly not on the script writing team.
Yeah.
And that is Midway City from the first Suicide Squad.
It is Mid City. Midway City. Okay. Yeah, it's just. So then watching it, and I'm like, this feels a little uncomfortable. This feels like this was supposed to be Deadshot, and then reading everything, and I'm like, oh, because it was supposed to be Deadshot, and like that's what they've done with this whole movie is try to build upon a character that you have 2 hours of connection to from the first movie, but it's a different character now.
Yeah.
Good luck figuring that out.
I know, and like, you know, like I think it would be important at this point because, as you mentioned, Idris Elba is like all of the acting in this movie is amazing. Like there's so much being brought to the table by so many people that are excited to be here. I'll even say, like, Gunn is clearly having a fun fucking time with this film, but I think the issue is that he knows this is going to be the only movie he's going to make for DC. He at this point, by the time he actually gets into filming Suicide Squad, the Suicide Squad, Disney has already called him back for their shit, and he's like, well, I got to honor my contract with them, and they're like, yeah, we get it. Make the one movie, then come back to us for Galaxy 3. So, like, he knows this is his one movie with them, so he's not making any effort to be the guy that sticks around. All of these people in this movie, they know by now that things have just tanked in this universe. Like, yeah, Margot Robbie is doing phenomenal as Harley, but after the reception that she got from Birds of Prey, not from audiences, because a lot of people loved her in that role, but the way that the studio treated that film, I'm sure she could give two shits about sticking around as this character any longer, and she's just going to do whatever the hell she wants with it. This is a movie full of people who are having a blast doing what they're doing and don't give a fucking shit if it means they get to come back and make another one. Like, the studio, yes. Everyone on set, no. Like everyone here is so excited to be in a movie doing this fucking thing. Like Pete Davidson, who shows up for all of 10 minutes of this movie. You think he gives a shit that he got killed in the first 10 minutes and is probably never going to be back?
I think he thanks God that he got killed in the first 10 minutes of this fucking movie, because I still got a paycheck and I got some time away.
Posters, despite the fact he ended up not being in the movie.
Yeah. And like, I'm going to make money off it.
Yeah. But that is the feeling throughout, is like all of these people are there. I don't feel like anybody's phoning it in. I feel like all of this work is being done. I just feel like nobody there gives a shit what anybody else is going to think about making this movie. Which, you know, in and of itself is a beautiful thing. Like I'm all here for that.
You know, art for the sake of arts, art for the sake of art. Really,
Yeah.
like they're just there to create something. I guess what didn't connect with me was the story, the way it was told. Because you're not wrong,
It's a mess.
all of these
Mess.
characters really did resonate with me on some level, but it was the presentation overall. And
Story and timeline alone is just a fucking mess. Yeah.
yeah. Okay, good. I'm glad that I'm not alone on that. But then, like, I get excited when I hear Project Starfish, and I'm like, oh my god, so it's going to be Starro, right? It can't not be Starro if it's Project Starfish, because I haven't seen any marketing, because they leaned heavy into the Sejan's Gambit. I mean, Shark King going nom noms is the end of the movie.
Yeah, yeah.
It is the last line of the movie. I'm like, what the hell, Sejan?
Yeah, man. There's so many moments in this movie that are just fun and cool, but like it is all held together with scotch tape. Like at any moment it all starts to kind of fall apart, and then they like scramble to pull it back together, and then it starts to fall apart again. It's like that fucking that meme of the person trying to hold oranges in their hand, right? Like it's this entire film for me.
I mean, and I think, very much as I have been vocal that the biggest misstep in the first Suicide Squad is having Slipknot there, killing him off, but then not using that as just like the callback of the group, right? Using gallows humor, especially since that whole mission is fucking climbing. Watching it again, it was that reminder that like all they do in this fucking movie is climb things.
If only Slipknot was still here.
Oh, you know who would be loving this right now? Slipknot, master climber, poor bastard. Like, and it's the sort of gallows humor type shit that like would be subtle but also expected from a group of supervillains, right? So then you have what is the throwawayest line of throwaway lines, that Bloodsport is in prison for putting Superman in the ICU with a kryptonite bullet. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh my god. So it's Project Starfish, it's Starro. Please have Superman be the person who just shows up at the end and kills him with his heat vision.
He just destroys him. No. Oh, man.
Like, he just vaporizes him, and then something survives so that they have that ability to do that storyline where Starro eventually takes over Superman. Like, that's one of my favorite things, where they have a sort of Venom symbiotic relationship for Starro's race, because they're both the last of their kind. Like, and I'm just like, you introduce Superman, and then you don't use him that way, and it would totally, like, wipe away every like small issue I have with the film, because Amanda Waller could definitely forgive them their trespasses if, in the eyes of the world, this was an event that was stopped by Superman. Not an event.
On top of that, if they were all seen aiding Superman in stopping it, right? Like suddenly she'd be in a very tough spot to kill them all if they were all seen as heroes alongside Superman, right?
Right. But at the end of the day, no one's going to remember that King Shark was there. They're going to remember that time that Superman killed the starfish from outer space.
Yeah.
And you know, everything else can still happen. And it would be one of those things where like it would just highlight the the absurdity of a group like the Suicide Squad in a world with literal gods walking around.
And I think that to that, right, highlighting the absurdity of a team like the Suicide Squad when like they are literally just human beings or at least weaker creatures, right? Like that's the first 10 minutes of this movie. Is I think that just because you mentioned Slipknot earlier, like I don't want to let this moment pass.
Oh yeah.
This movie does something so much better than I feel the first one did, and that was add fucking stakes to the idea that they could be killed at any moment on this mission. They try to do that in the first one by killing off Slipknot instantly, but the thing is, motherfucker showed up for all of 5 minutes of screen time, didn't know who he was, didn't care, he got killed, boom, the end. After that, there's never a mention again of him, as you so delightfully point out. To that point, there's never a point in the first movie where I feel like they're in any danger of actually getting killed.
Yeah, that's
even
true.
The moment when Waller tells Deadshot to take a shot at Harley, I don't think he's gonna shoot Harley. Like that, just there's no stakes.
Yeah.
So the first 10 minutes of this movie is all about setting up the actual stakes of these people on this team. And they never stop reminding you of the dangers of being on this team for the rest of it. And I really appreciated that. Like, that is something hardcore about this movie that just was completely absent from Ayer's vision.
What they actually, and the way that they do that, and I will give credit for that, is the biggest issue in the first movie is that Rick Flag has the ability to kill any of them.
Right.
Right? It should be someone in some fucking dark bunker who is the person that triggers this, right?
Right.
At the command of Amanda Waller. It can't be Rick Flag because at the end of the day, he's a member of the team too. Like, that's
Right.
what Rick Flag is.
Yeah. No, I loved Kinnaman and Flag in this one. Like, there's a lot that I really, really liked about this one, and that's the thing is we talked after I had finally admitted to you guys that I had seen it, because I had to like sit on it for a day before I could talk about it with anybody. Is there's this sense that like some of us enjoyed the first one more, some of us enjoyed this one more, and like I'm not gonna like. If you and Dale have always enjoyed the first movie in a way that I've never quite clicked with, and I'm not going to say that I enjoy this one anywhere close to that. But the reasons that I enjoy this movie are because there was just so much more in this movie that I would care to see again. and I don't want to dwell on this, but I mentioned in that I had tried rewatching the first one with some people, like to say we watched it before we watched the new one, and it got shut off 40 minutes from the end because people were so bored out of their minds. So one person was extremely aggravated that they were watching this movie after about 20 minutes into it, and let us all know it. And then the other thing was that one person kept trying to figure out if they had seen the movie. They were like, oh yeah, no, we saw this. And I was like, you did not see this with me. You didn't come to the theater with me. And they were like, oh, okay, then maybe I watched it on my own at some point. But why would I do that? I don't watch these movies without you. Well, I guess I didn't see this. And then 10 minutes later being like, no, I think I've seen this. No, wait, I didn't see this. For like an hour and a half.
That sounds awful. I don't mean to be rude to whoever this person is, but like that, you just need to.
But that is, to me, that's the kind of movie it is.
Yeah.
I never once blamed them for not remembering that movie, because there's so much that happens in that movie that is not memorable. And there's so much that happens in that movie that is weird and aggravating if you're trying to watch that movie and just enjoy yourself. That movie challenges you to enjoy it. This movie invites you to enjoy it, but challenges you to give a shit at any point.
So I have to say, 40 minutes from the end, you don't get to the bar scene, right?
No, the bar scene was the last scene.
Okay,
the last
okay.
30-something minutes of that movie is the entire fight with enchantments and credits.
That's that's what I thought. I thought
the bar scene, and I literally texted you after we had seen it.
Yeah, well, that's what I wanted to make sure is that, like, yeah, because if that movie still hasn't gotten you by the bar scene, which is bar none the best sequence in that whole film in terms of world building, character building, stakes building, like, it means something, right? Mm-hmm. It comes far too little too late, right? And they miss another wonderful Slipknot opportunity where if they did a cheers to Slipknot, just like it's like to Slipknot, fuck that guy. Right? Like, like it's just, yeah, it's so if you're not there at that point, all you're missing out on is a bunch of CGI and Diablo's like wonderful moment where he embraces like the curse within him.
Yeah.
Like
somebody the entire time went, that's not Ghost Rider though, right? And I was like, no, it's not Ghost Rider.
No, this is DC. This is DC.
I understand. We just watched a whole bunch of I love season 3 of AOS with Robbie Reyes. Like I understand I probably confused you by doing that. But that's not what this is.
Yeah, I mean, I got to tell you, when you were so quiet on the Suicide Squad, I honestly thought it was another Wonder Woman 84 for you, and it was one that you kept trying to start but couldn't get invested in, and that we wouldn't be able to have this conversation. So,
I sat there, and I'll be honest, I sat there with my jaw open the entire time. I could not believe what was in front of me. The moment that did it for me, the moment that started it for me, was Blackguard getting his face shot off.
Oh, yeah.
The second that happened, I was like, what? And then they never let up for the next 2 hours. And so, in terms of being in the movie and enjoying it, I was there. And as I said, compare that to a couple of nights earlier when we tried to rewatch the first one and we literally shut it off because we couldn't finish watching it. It was a very different experience. I definitely walked away, as I've made clear, I think, before this in this episode, with some some issues with the movie, but at least the entire time I was just like, fucking hell, what is happening?
Yeah.
I
There
mean, like,
was
we talked about Starro, but we didn't talk about is the gory fucking reveal of what Starro does to people. Like the removal of Starro from like zombie faces was one of the most upsetting things I've ever seen. Like the half body moving around still with Starro on their face was just like nuts. And I was just like, the fact that this movie made me legitimately afraid of Starro.
I guess like I've never thought of Starro outside of the fact that like I'm kind of sad.
Exactly. And this movie shows you how fucking terrifying that character could
Yeah,
be.
let's talk about the fact that it's okay that you're sad, but what you're doing, that's not all right. We all deal with sadness in different ways, Starro the Conqueror. Conquering is not the most healthy one.
Yeah, yeah.
Tell me about your childhood. Well, I was born inside of myself. Oh, man. Yeah, it was when they got to Jotunheim and the reveal that, like, Peacekeeper is bad. Because it's, like, one of those situations where, like, he's gonna be bad, right? He has to be the one who's bad.
See, but I actually really like the subtle concept that's going on there, where he's not evil. This is just his character. He believes in the pursuit and the idea of peace with a very Anglo-centric, American-centric
Yes.
vision of it, right? Like his vision of peace is a fucked up one, which is probably why he has ended up in prison at some point. Like, but that idea that he believes in that so much to the point where he doesn't care like what he has to do to stop it, and he says that early in the movie. It's not a surprise. So that moment when you realize the turn, you
Yeah.
could say it's expected. But I would say I'd be more disappointed if it didn't happen. If he got on board with this anti-American vision at the end of it, it'd be really weird.
Right, but I guess that was the part for me where I'm like, well, now I'm just waiting for the end of the movie. It's not that it wasn't expected, because you're not wrong. There is that beautiful, like he talks about, if I were ordered to eat an entire beach full of dicks, I would eat every dick on that beach.
I mean more the moment where he says he has killed men, women, and children in the name of defending his country because he believes in that, in like that nationalistic view.
Yeah.
And he admits to that. Like, that's when you realize how insane he actually is. And like, and so the thing that gets me is that like the thing that I was waiting for is I had no fucking clue how they were gonna. I was like, how are these motherfuckers supposed to stop this? Like the literal, they name it, the kaiju that has appeared at the end of this movie. How are these assholes supposed to stop it? And I Harley in this movie is, it's so. This is not the best version of Margot Robbie's Harley, but Margot Robbie's Harley is such a great version of Harley that I don't care. This is just another issue in her comic for me, and so I just love it. Like there's not a moment in this movie for her that I'm disappointed in. It's not, like I said, it's not Birds of Prey. There's not those like fuck yeah moments for me, but the closest is definitely her with the javelin, which has been a fucking fantastic prop for her the whole time, just running down that roof and just fucking dive bombing Starro in the eye. Like that is a phenomenal moment for her and her character. And I literally didn't see it coming until they revealed her taking the high ground, and I was like, the javelin, I get it now. Like, but that's 10 minutes from the end at that point.
Yeah, I know. I guess I saw the javelin. I'm like, so that's going in Starro's eye, because it's still going to be Starro, right? I guess it's one of those situations where I didn't know anything going into the movie, but then my unfortunate and my knowledge of DC, right? On this show, I might present as like I know a lot about DC, but of the big two, Marvel is the one that I have the larger like database of knowledge on.
No, Marvel's your bag.
Yeah,
for sure.
But
You've admitted that before.
yeah, but DC is just this one where like the stuff that I've collected throughout my time on the planet just so happens to be the stuff that people want to focus on. Like, I saw Kaleidoscope, and I'm like, what a fantastic reference to put Kaleidoscope in this movie. And then, like, there are articles about the character, and I'm like, oh, I didn't realize that, like, she was such a small part and really only appeared in the one issue. like she's just, like, one of those beautiful background image characters where you see her and you know who she is. Sort of like Calendar Man. Like, it's like, you know that it's Calendar Man. There's no doubt in your mind that Sean Gunn is playing Calendar Man.
Oh my god! The second he showed up, I that was the nerd out moment for me.
Yeah.
Where I was like, yeah, all right, fuck yeah, Calendar Man being a dick.
Doing what Calendar Man do best.
Well, and yeah, being this fucking talkative jackass in prison, because that's the big thing about Calendar Man is his big reveal. Another thing that we've talked about, like his introduction to the DC universe is the Long Halloween, and it is because there is a series of killings happening on holidays, and everybody thinks it would be somebody copying him. So Batman goes to him, but he's in Arkham already at that point, and he spends the majority of that story being an asshole behind glass in Arkham. So like it's just par for the course for him. He's arrested and stuck, but he still feels the need to be shitty to everybody.
Calendar Man's just a snarky Hannibal Lecter.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's all he is. It's like
with a worse gimmick.
Yeah.
He doesn't even eat people. He just kills people on holidays. Doesn't even kill people. Sometimes it was literally just he committed a robbery on St. Patrick's Day or something.
Yeah.
It just had to be on a calendar day.
it needs to be on a significant day. Otherwise, I wouldn't remember it. If I did something on March 4th, I'm gonna forget. But if I do something on March 17th, I'll always remember, Batman. Man, you suck. Yeah, I do. I totally suck. And he'd be the first to admit it. Yeah. But, like, that's the thing. There was, like, all these great moments of, like, perfect background character to, like, evoke it. I mean, Mongal being on the team that Savant is on and Blackguard is on. I'm like, Mongal, it means so much being introduced in this movie for the larger world. And I love that she just got killed.
Yeah. It's a movie that, like really, like I said, I don't think the movie cares how you feel about it in the end. So right. Like, and with that in mind, I think that's part of the other reason why I'm happy to back away from this one and just, have my criticisms of it, have my enjoyment of it, and not care anymore about the DC universe, because they finally made a movie that they so don't care about what comes next in this film that I felt good. It felt good to watch a DC movie where it wasn't a bunch of building to a different film coming out next year. Like it felt good.
And you know what's even crazier about that is this is the same year where we finally got to see the 4-hour cut of Justice League, right? Mm-hmm. And that is building to something that will never happen. That's 4 hours building to movies and storylines that will never be followed.
Well, and that's what I mean about earlier it was all this anticipation, all of this buildup, all of this idea that I always constantly felt like disappointed and let down because there's always this anticipation for the next thing, and then the next thing's not quite there, but that's okay because it's promising you the next thing. But that's not quite there, but that's okay because it's promising you the next thing. And then finally, I think the thing that broke me was the culmination I had been promised, not just by the makers but also by all of the fans, that this was going to be the thing, this was going to be the payoff, was this 4-hour version of this film that was finally going to make it all worth it. The last 10 years of me giving a shit about DC movies worth it, and it wasn't. And I think that broke me to the point where I'm just like as somebody that you talk about how Marvel is more your bag, DC is definitely more mine.
I agree.
As somebody that falls in that camp, that is upsetting to me to the point where my heart is just giving up. And so to see the Suicide Squad and see that they kind of in the same way the entire time felt the same way about things, kind of felt a bit of camaraderie with the squad.
I get that. I can understand it. I think where Justice League worked for me, a completely separate side of the coin, is watching that 4 hours knowing there's no fucking tomorrow. So anything that's brought up is never going to get a resolution. Yeah. So just enjoy it as part of the weird fucking tapestry beautiful mind board that Zack Snyder has in his office.
I'm never going to understand, but I'm so happy that the last 30 minutes of that movie, how long is that weird future scene? 20 minutes?
20. It's 20 whole minutes.
Yeah, that last 20 minutes of that movie exists. Oh, man.
It means nothing. And it's fantastic. It's just wonderful. And the last thing I will say, all praise to Margot Robbie. And she actually, I mean, I was disappointed in this Harley Quinn compared to how great she was in Birds of Prey. And even like she's the only person with like a character arc in David Ayer's Suicide Squad, right?
Yep.
She actually gets a story told about herself where like Diablo, we find out that he killed his family and then he's redeeming himself. Like it's the same eye blink that those two things occur. So
yeah, I will say the Ayer thing that I completely misremembered in my mind is I thought Joker sacrificed her in the end to like save his own skin. and I thought that was kind of the thing that was like kind of the set off point for like then Birds of Prey and then and you know her being on her own, but that's not at all what happens in that movie.
No, their breakup totally happens off screen.
Yeah, I just somehow I had remembered him throwing her out of the plane, and now that whole thing had been him trying to, in an effort to get the cops or whatever off his ass, he like fed them Harley, and so she realized at the end of the day that she was nothing but a you know an object to him, and like I wrote a better version of that moment than is in that movie. Just as another thing about that movie that I remembered as I was watching it. Yeah, no, like Birds of Prey is going to be, I mean, tops for her. Her introduction is can't be beat, but I personally I love her escape scene in this movie. Like I think it's extremely well done. A lot of people have pointed out that it feels like it is just stolen straight out of Birds of Prey, and I don't disagree. But I will say this: I'd rather they do that than fuck up her character and do something with her that doesn't make any sense. The bigger moment for me in this for her is when she shoots what's his nuts when she shoots the president there, because it is this phenomenal moment, and that was kind of where I was saying that I feel like she's such a complex version of Harley, where she explains that she is killing him because she understands now that evil is not a good quality in a lover.
In a lover,
right? Yeah. Right. Like she's like, I understand now that like to look out for these red flags, so I'm gonna just end this now. But so she's doing the right thing for the wrong reasons, and I loved that. Like it's such a beautiful thing. Whereas like the Harley Quinn show is making a very strong effort to show that she knows right from wrong, that she's really trying to do right. And I applaud that. I love that. It's just not very in character with what she was earlier in her life, right? Then there's the animated series that she just delights in just being the worst, and I love that too.
Yeah, it's cool that we get to see such distinct versions of the character.
Yeah.
But really, what it is for me, and is she said, I've built this character the way that I'm going to build the character. Margot Robbie went to the material and is very obvious, knows who Harley Quinn is and what she wants to bring to the table. And then where she really gets to have fun is seeing that the director has their own idea of who Harleen Quinzel is. And then you get to see what the director asks her to focus on. So she gets to look at this whole dodecahedron that is the character of Harley Quinn. And then when the director's like, you need to focus on these 3 sections, those are the ones that she focuses on. But she already has all of it like prepared because of the acting work she's done. And watching her in those 3 films, it makes perfect sense. And I really hope that Harley Quinn persists. I hope that there's another Harley Quinn movie. I hope that Margot Robbie's desire to do something with her and Poison Ivy actually comes to pass.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see a Birds of Prey where they focus on her and Pamela and Selena. Like, I think it would be a phenomenal like branch for them to explore.
Yeah. I mean, the talk has been that it'd be Gotham Sirens is what they would call it, focusing on those 3 specifically, and I would love that. And I just think that if Birds of Prey had been received better, it would actually be happening and not be something that.
The thing is like I feel like Birds of Prey is one of those movies that we're going to look back on and realize it was actually received very well. It was just the zeitgeist of the time kind of clouded a lot of people's vision, because a lot of loud, obnoxious voices were saying things that maybe don't represent the majority, which happens a lot. To that, can I change some pace?
I think final thought is, I mean, I'm not sad that I watched it, but I'm kind of off the DC train too. This was a lovely final ride. It wasn't even a lovely final ride. It was hot. It was sweaty. The train broke down a couple of times.
Yeah, exactly. It fucking whatever they were doing with the timeline in this movie made no sense to me. But whatever. Like at that point, I didn't care. I was in to watch people get their faces blown off.
Right. I wouldn't recommend the ride, but I'm not sad that I personally went on it. Yeah. And now let's leave it. Let's leave it in the past. I wanted it to be the center, and then I wanted to do a compliment sandwich with this episode. Let's be honest. Happy Serial Talk, the Suicide Squad, whatever we're going to talk about right now. So
I checked out the first couple of episodes of Masters of the Universe. There's only 5 up, so I'm gonna finish it probably by the end of today. But I wanted to just give a shout out to it because I had very, very ignorantly been unaware of some of the conversation around it, and I only kind of started to figure it out because I have been watching it, and so as I've been like googling stuff about it, try to figure out who's in it and things like that, coming across just shit about it. And so we mentioned the idea that like Birds of Prey, I think personally kind of fell victim to a lot of really stupid, louder, obnoxious voices than actually represented a lot of people's feelings about that movie. I am feeling the same way very much about Masters of the Universe right now, because I feel like they're from what I have found is there seems to be a lot of conversation revolving around some stuff that happens in that show, involving the idea of like empowering women and like raising up female characters in that story. And I feel like a lot of detractors to that are feeling like they do it at the expense of punching a lot of male characters down, and I cannot disagree with that more. Now, I've only seen 2 out of the 5 episodes, so maybe there's like something crazy that happens in the next couple. But like, I cannot believe how good that fucking show is, Dev. I'm super excited. Like, how into He-Man were you when you were younger?
Fucking, I loved He-Man.
You should check the show out then.
I really want to. Here's the thing. Here is the biggest like thing with that. I don't want to watch it alone. I don't want to watch the first episode alone. I don't want to watch these first 5 episodes on my own and then feel like I have to rewatch them, right?
Yeah.
So, and it's specifically with Dale, with that whole thing. And we've tried many times to make it work, and our schedules just have not worked out that way. All I'm asking is for her to watch the first episode with me. Because I don't want, if she doesn't like it, then I will gladly continue on my own. But I don't want to have to rewatch the first episode if the first episode is not the strongest episode.
How much do you know about this story for what this show is doing? It is a direct sequel to the old series. They are open about the idea.
I know nothing about it.
Then I'm not going to talk much more about this, because something happens in that series, happens in the first episode, which is actually the setup for what the rest of that series is, that I didn't know was happening. That like I had no idea it was coming, and it does become the plot of the show. So it's amazing. And as somebody that watched a bunch of He-Man and She-Ra and all that sort of stuff growing up, just like casually, like I didn't go seeking it out in order or anything like that. But if it came on like fucking Boomerang or something, like I loved watching that stuff. The same goes for like G.I. Joe and things like that. Like those old toy commercial cartoons always got me, because one of the best things about them is that like they're colorful and they're fun, and they're always introducing new characters and stuff like that. And this show celebrates that in such a beautiful way. And here's the thing that really got me, and this is the last thing that I want to say about it, is I didn't expect it to be as earnest as it is. I had heard that Kevin Smith was involved. I had known that it was, trying to go back to He-Man, and having watched a bunch of She-Ra, not that She-Ra does not love its source material, it very much revels in the idea of updating its source material. That is not this show.
Yeah. This
is a show that they could have put on literally just at the tail. Like, they could have just tacked this on when the other show ended, and it would feel like it just kept on going. Like, this is such an earnest attempt at just keeping up the He-Man story. It's amazing. It's just amazing.
Yeah, and that's why I'm excited about it. But because of all this, like, it's such in the air that I don't want to, like, watch it and then have it and then have to go back to it. Kind of like with the Transformers stuff. Like, I want to at least watch the first episode with you, Dale, because if you're on board, then I will watch it with you. And that's sort of where I'm with a lot of shows. Like, Reservation Dogs just premiered on FX, and I'm very interested in that show. It's actually straight to Hulu. It's a Hulu original, but like with FX involved. I don't know what FX is doing. FX is turning Hulu into another channel, and that's great, but also I don't understand it.
Disney is very Disney is trying to use Hulu as like it's what's the when they didn't want to produce Nightmare Before Christmas, so they used
Touchstone, or Buena Vista,
Touchstone or something like that. Yeah, but they're doing the same thing with Hulu versus the Disney Plus app. So what happens is a lot of FX and Fox related stuff that they want to still be in their wheelhouse and they're making the money on, they will push it onto Hulu instead. So these are the kinds of things that if Disney Plus would just fucking bite the bullet and just combine all of its shit together, these would have been Disney Plus shows. But if you saw Disney Plus on the latest season of fucking like Dave or they were putting up Always Sunny in Philadelphia on Disney Plus, you'd probably raise an eyebrow, right? That's all that it is, man. Is they're just using Hulu as their dumping ground for anything
I think where I don't get it, though, because I understand it as a dumping ground, right? I mean, that's what Love, Victor really was. Love, Victor was supposed to be a Disney Plus show, and then they're like, oh, no, Disney doesn't want to do a show about a gay main character. And it's like, well, Disney, maybe you should. Maybe, you should reevaluate what you just said. That's fine. And I've understood Hulu is that what I really don't get with, like, Reservation Dogs is that it's like FX streaming is how they're marketing it. And it's like, why isn't it just a Hulu exclusive? Like, I don't get that they've invented a whole new, like, species of these types of shows for people to get confused about. Because when I heard that, I'm like, oh, so it's going to be like Fargo, where an episode airs on FX and then it goes to streaming on Hulu. And the whole thing about FX streaming is see it first on FX, but then it will be streaming the next day. And I'm fine with that. That's marketing mumbo jumbo. That tracks with me, right? That I understand. It kind of makes when they switched Always Sunny and Archer to FXX, right? It's just like the next evolution of that. But now that it's like, oh, why isn't Reservation Dogs on the TV at all? Why can't I find it there? And then to find out that it is exclusively an FX series that will be streaming on Hulu. Like, so it's a Disney series because Disney owns FX because they got it in the Fox merger. What are you people doing? Why are you just why are you confusing people more?
Yeah.
But that show, right? It's a show I'm very excited about, but I think that the family might enjoy it based on what I know about it. So I'm like, can we just watch the first episode together? And if you guys don't enjoy it, then I will go watch it in the basement as if I am an outcast and unwanted in this family. It's fine, but like...
I will crawl back to my cave.
But like, I'd like to try first episodes as a group, right? Especially when we're living in these new pandemic settings, right? Where getting together for TV time with the people you live with is part of it, right? Like it's part of the coping mechanism. It's sort of your socialization for the day in a weird way. I don't know. And that's why
the opposite problem on this end is because we are all here and all together all the time, that every show has become one that we watch together. And so I find myself on these odd days when I'm on my own or during work when I've got a few spare minute where I want to watch a thing and I'm suddenly realizing, oh shit, I can't watch the next episode of that because I'm still watching it with the family. So like I actually find myself stuck not getting to watch certain things because like maybe somebody's not in the mood one night or somebody's not around one night or somebody is focused on something else. So like we don't do a thing. And I'm actually like losing like a lot of shows that I'm watching because of it. And I say that as somebody that watches too much shit, like losing a few shows here or there is actually kind of a necessity, or else I'm going to go out of my mind with my heart being pulled in a million different directions. But like it took us 3 months to rewatch Doom Patrol. If I had waited that long to watch it, like you never would have forgiven me, never mind the world.
Yeah, CJ, we're gonna watch Doom Patrol season 3 day and date, man. We have to. We got to stay on top of it. Which that's apparently coming back soon, right? With Titans starting, I think this week, right? Thursday, the 12th.
Starts on the 12th.
Yeah.
Yep.
Along with Brooklyn Nine-Nine's final season starting up, which I don't know how to feel about that. I don't know how to feel about it. I'm excited, and also I'm a little nervous because of the major shift that we've had towards police in this country.
Yeah, since that show started, yeah. I mean, I subscribe to the theory at this point where they exist in an alternate universe where police are not assholes. That is a common thread in Brooklyn Nine-Nine fan bases.
And that is fine until this final season comes and they canonize whatever their reaction is to that. Mm-hmm. And that's the reason why I'm super like nervous about what's going to happen. You know what? I want to talk about August 12th, 2021. I want to talk about August 12th, 2021, because it should be the happiest day of a young Devin's life.
It's our show. We can talk about whatever the fuck we want.
Because
what's going on the 12th?
The Washington football team is playing against the New England Patriots. And oh my God, I kind of want to watch that, right? It's a ridiculous team name that I support wholeheartedly because like they're just owning it, right? We are the Washington football team. and they're playing against the New England Patriots, who, whatever. I mean, it's a preseason game, so it doesn't really mean anything, but it might be fun, right? And also, some people that I used to work with at Carnival are now in the organization of the Washington football team. So, like, it's going to be a fun night, right? They're showing it on the CW, and so that shouldn't be a problem, but the finale of Walker is supposed to air on August 12th. And let me tell you, Sejan, that Washington football team New England Patriots game, that's a regional program. So I'm just missing the finale of Walker.
Because they're just not even going to show it.
They're just not going to air it. It's going to air other places.
Are they going to do like an after the game type thing or anything like that?
It's not on the schedule right now. My guess is I'll be able to use like the CW app to watch it the next day with like commercials and stuff. But like, I'm like, yeah, finally. Like, because Walker, I can't believe that we've been talking about Walker as long as we have. It's had like month-long hiatuses. And it was supposed to be 13 episodes, and they really put together a strong 13-episode season. But then, because it was such a hit, they tacked on 5 extra episodes. And those 5 extra episodes have had, like, 3 weeks between each of them. So then I'm like, oh, the Olympics, so I have to wait for the finale of Walker. All right, Brooklyn Nine-Nine comes back. I get to finally end Walker, and we get to see what happens. They get to rest. I get to rest, and all this other stuff. And then, nope, football's on that night. I don't know what you're supposed to do about it, Devin. But it reminded me in this weird way of what TV was like when we were younger.
Yeah, man. I feel like the 90s really trained us for pandemic television watching, I think. Yeah.
It's just like one of those situations where like stuff was preempted all the time. Did you know that King of the Hill aired for 16 seasons? And the last 4 were just preempted by football every week? I'm sure you did.
So you got so heavy and angry about King of the Hill that it actually blew out my headphones on this side. What did you say? It aired for 16 seasons.
It aired for 16 seasons. Were preempted by NFL games.
Oh yeah. Yes.
Like that's just the thing that happened.
Their audience, man. Yeah, they were just like, you know what? These people want to see after a game. Yeah, that's what they did, man.
But then it never happened because the games went long.
Yeah, exactly.
It was just. And those are some great seasons of King of the Hill. Watch it on Hulu.
Do you know that the first time I ever saw American Dad, or the first time any of us ever saw American Dad, is the series premiere after the Super Bowl? They put that episode up for everybody to watch. And then I think it was still like a month before it actually became an actual show. Like, it was an actual show on Fox. But I remember everybody talking about watching that watching the new Family Guy, the political Family Guy that was going to be on after the Super Bowl, and like.
Yeah, I remember that because it was so much they're like, all right, we want to avoid what happened with Family Guy the first time. So we're going to just recreate exactly what we did with Family Guy to build that audience. But then we promise that we are not going to preempt it. We're going to put it on at 9:30. This show will air every week. It's not going to have the problems that Family Guy faced trying to be put on at 7:30 before The Simpsons.
Oh, and it had to be part of the deal where he was like, look, you motherfuckers, if you're going to jerk me around again, then we're going to guarantee that this show gets seen by the largest audience possible when it premieres. Yeah, okay, right. We can do that.
And then at the same, they're like, oh, by the way, we're bringing back Family Guy. And that's going to be the lead-in for it. And he's like, oh, okay, sure, I guess I can do that. And it worked, right? I fucking love American Dad. And it has stayed consistent. And I had a sad realization, this weekend, that Family Guy is going to end with season 19. Not Family Guy. American Dad is going to end with season 19. And that makes me sad, but that's what it's currently renewed through. Like, they currently have a deal through season 19. And as much as I want it to continue, getting to season 19 means 400 episodes of American Dad. Yeah. And, like, that'd be fine. That's more than enough for TBS to continually rerun during the days, but then not have to pay the money to have new episodes produced.
Yeah.
Like,
it's also the fact that a Family Guy will just now be a thing until we die. But
right. Yeah, that's the thing. But that's the thing. And then everything can get focused into Family Guy. But like, until I hear it, it was just that thing where I'm like, oh yeah, so Family Guy is in this 19th season, and They just had their 400th episode. Oh shit. That's what they're going to aim for. Maybe they add one more to get to 420 episodes of American Dad, with Bong Brain being one of the like catchphrases of the series now. But who knows? It's just one of those things where I'm like, American Dad's going to end someday. And I think I really did it because I've watched everything that's available on Hulu, and like it made me sad to get through all of American Dad again. It didn't make me happy like the last time I did it in 2011. Holy shit, it's been 10 years since I've watched the entire series of American Dad. And those 10 extra years of American Dad, as much fun as they are, right? Like, it feels like I'm closer to an end date. Whereas when I rewatched it the first time, it's like, there's more American Dad coming. I know there's more coming.
Man.
You did this by bringing up American Dad. Just a reminder.
No, I'm just thinking of like I remember being in college and the DVDs of Family Guy, like being like a constant in our lives, like my life, like everywhere I would go, somebody just had all of the DVDs of the original seasons, and like if they would just be on, people would just put them on a loop. Like we'd hang out, play pool or play poker, whenever Family Guy would be on, go to a party, and like everybody would be drinking in the kitchen, or people would be hanging out in the dining room, but also Family Guy would be on in the living room, and there'd be people sitting around getting high watching Family Guy. Like that was it's such a weird thing to think about, how much that aspect, like that has just been just part of like the background of my life. And like
when Family Guy released on DVD, we cut school, right? I will remember this forever, because Stan Tenza, I'll use his full name because he is a big part of this. We worked together at Blockbuster, and we had access to the Family Guy DVDs the weekend before, right? Because we worked at Blockbuster, and that's what we did all weekend, is we had all the Blockbuster people had like a rotating party just hanging out and watching the Family Guy episodes again. And it was awesome. It was like one of the coolest things that we've ever done, that I've ever been a part of. And then the day that it released, that Tuesday, at lunchtime, I snuck out through the auditorium to Stan waiting in his car, and we drove to Best Buy and bought them out of DVD copies of that, and then distributed them to people who had given us money to pick up the show the rest of the day. Like it was just like this super fun, like it's like, all right, it's going to be $35, but it's only 30. I'm like, yeah, but we're driving over to Best Buy and picking it up, right? Like we're taking that expense so that you will have it when school is over.
Yeah, it's just weird to me because like that kind of shit, none of this matters in like a streaming verse, right? Yeah. Like even to the aspect of like, oh, we're all stuck inside now. It's just this idea that like when you know that even if something's not on streaming, it may eventually come to streaming, or there's options like Amazon where you can just pay for it, or what's Vudu, you know, that's Walmart's one, right? Like like you can just kind of you can just get it now. You don't have to do this thing where you have to wait till a time of the day to watch it. You don't have to wait till a weekend when it comes out. You don't have to wait until somebody goes out and buys the DVD and delivers it to you. You know what I mean? Like that just doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, it's crazy that's gone. Especially like Night Court, right? Night Court has been up because R.I.P. Marky Post, right? I can't believe how many people have died from Night Court. Of like the shows that have lost significant members of their cast, Night Court that's a crazy number of people.
John Larroquette still kicking?
John Larroquette, Marsha Warfield, and I can't think of the guy who played Bull, but he's still out there too. Nostradamus Bull, the bailiff. I think those are the only three who are still left from the main cast. Man. I mean, like, and Night Court is one of those ones that was at like a weird disadvantage because they lost two bailiffs like real early on, because they're like, let's just cast the oldest funny women in Hollywood and we should probably be fine. That's a conversation I once had when I was like hanging out in New York. Was like, we're gonna cast the oldest, funniest woman we know, and then when she passes away, let's get someone even older and funnier. And then finally, it's like, we need to cast somebody who's gonna last. We can't keep doing this. Oh, and that's where Marsha Warfield comes along. And it's like, Night Court is a great show. I love Night Court. It's like right in that same echelon that I hold Cheers and Wings, but it is not available anywhere.
Yeah,
Like
man.
I'd have to buy it in order to watch it. And like that's kind of all I want to do with like the passing of Charlie Robinson and Harry Anderson and now Marky Post is I'd really like to relive that world. And it's so strange with everything that's available to not be able to find that without paying some larger cost of admission.
Yeah. Right. Well, yeah. I mean, that's been the weird thing about all sorts of stuff that we've talked about before. I mean, my never ending quest to see if I can get the Drew Carey show, right? And like that'll probably never happen because we know of like the rights issues with that. The same goes for what is it like the last season of Pete and Pete, if I remember
Yeah,
correctly, is
the
stuck in
third
that same
season of
kind
Pete and Pete. Why is that not on Paramount Plus? I don't. I like.
apparently there is some music rights issue specifically with the third season, and I don't know why it affects the whole third season or what, but that is the persistent rumor on why season 3 of Pete and Pete is not available anywhere.
God, that's another story. This guy who just lost his mind on me one night at a party. He's like, "Oh, you're sad that you don't have the third season of Pete and Pete." I was in the hospital and I had it pre-ordered from Amazon. And all I was looking forward to get me out of that hospital is that the day I got out, Pete and Pete season 3 would be on my fucking doorstep. And it wasn't there. And you're lucky I'm alive today to tell you this story. And I'm like, cool. Yep,
Is that Broken Leg Greg?
I feel lucky. It was the closest avatar to Broken Leg Greg that I've ever found outside of the state of Rhode Island. Like, he just got so weirdly triggered by, I don't even remember. Like, we weren't talking about Pete and Pete, and he just like, "Oh, you're sad about it?" And I'm like, I don't think I said Pete and Pete. What's happening?
I said I was sad.
What's happening right now? We were watching home movies. And you were complaining about Squiggle Vision in the first season. And then suddenly, I was the reason that the third season wasn't on your doorstep. But it wasn't me. It was apparently music rights issues.
I don't know if that's true, but that is apparently
It would make such sense, to be completely honest with you. I mean, even if it is just with Polaris and Hey Sandy, and they just didn't have the rights specifically to the third season. We've seen music rights be the issue. It's why we're never going to see Ed anywhere. Right. And it's why, like, we're talking about older ones, but I recently started watching Virgin River on Netflix. I don't know why. Oh, I finished The Queen's Gambit. That's pretty much why. Is like,
all right.
We watched The Queen's Gambit over the last week. That's very good. 2 thumbs up. Check it out if you got Netflix. And then it's like up next, and it's like, oh, Virgin River. We could try this, and we put it on, and it's not bad. I enjoy it, but it made me remember that show Abby's on NBC, and like Abby's is a show that if it had happened in the pandemic, probably would have done gangbusters. The idea of like, I just have a fun bar in my backyard. Right? And like people would be setting up Abby style bars for people to have like interactions in their neighborhood.
Yeah, and you'd have a bunch of people that were doing it and trying to say that as in a very hipster way that it was to be safe and like they were taking all precautions, and then it would turn into a thing that everybody was doing despite precautions.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like it slots so into the pandemic landscape that we're currently existing in. And that show has just like been erased from existence. It's like impossible to find it, which is even weirder when you consider that NBC now has their own streaming platform in Peacock. So like it should be up there. Ditto, I've already lamented the loss of Perfect Harmony, right? And I get that one because it probably is tied up in all of the music that the choir performed. Right. And then the last one is Sunnyside. And I know that Sunnyside, you know, was over hard right at the start of that film. And that's disappointing. But I watched that season and is a really good series. And I would love to watch Sunnyside. And the fact that, like, it's just not available is very disappointing. Like, it makes sense for these things from our past, right? Maybe being harder to find, maybe, you know, having a music rights issue that makes it difficult to have it available on streaming or on DVD or in some form where it's watchable. It's so strange what we're still losing even over the past 3 years. in
Yeah,
terms of availability.
knowing what little window we have now gotten into the concept of streaming rights when it comes to Scarlett Johansson and her fight with Disney over that fucking madhouse, like why Disney thought that it would be okay to just change everything despite what a contract says is astounding to me.
Are you
Um,
really? It's Disney. Are you really
I mean,
astounded by it?
I guess the idea
Have you
that they
not
thought they
seen
could get away
Aladdin?
with it. If they thought they could get away with it at a certain level, I guess I will say.
Yeah.
But yeah. So with that example, I have to wonder how much of this sort of thing, especially with a thing like NBC, where at the time making Sunnyside, maybe things were not solidified in the idea of what Peacock would be one day. So like they didn't put together streaming rights contracts for these.
I mean, weirdly, I remember Sunnyside. I remember being in Virginia when it was canceled and reading this show is canceled, the show is no more. But new episodes will still drop on Hulu every Friday as if it had aired on Thursday. And I'm like, okay, so that has to be just some contractual thing, right? You guys don't want to dedicate the airtime to it because it's not, I don't know, it's not selling market shares or whatever's happening, but you did commit to releasing these episodes and they're made. It's not like one of those things where we only shot 6 episodes so we can cut and run. All 13 episodes have been shot and created, and the contract probably says they will all go to Hulu.
Yeah, and it would cost more money at this point to not just air them rather than, the cut and run aspect where they probably have to buy out of that contract, but that's going to be less money than they would spend making those episodes. So there's that element for sure. But to that, it's probably, at the time, they put 13 episodes up, the idea being if this hits, then they can go back to Hulu and they can say, if you want to keep it, you got to pay us more money. And Hulu just laughs in their face at that point because their show has been canceled.
Yeah. The show's been canceled, right? It doesn't show any intrinsic value to us, right? Because Devin Decker is watching every episode Friday and then again on Monday morning.
Right.
No, that Devin Decker's intrinsic value has gone down as we've seen more people streaming than Devin Decker. Oh man. It's just one of those situations. I'd like to touch on one other thing that I did this weekend. Two quick movie recommendations. First, since all this talk of Hulu, Barb and Star Go to Vista Del Mar is on Hulu. Go watch it right now. Pause the episode, go watch Bob and Star Go to Vista Del Mar, and then come back and finish the episode. It's so good. I think you'd like it because it's got a lot of Heavy MacGruber vibes in it.
Excellent.
Like real Heavy MacGruber stuff. But then it's just a funny movie, and everybody is there. Imagine if you had the Suicide Squad with everybody being on board to make that movie, but they made a plot that made sense and had a through line. That's Barb and Star Go to Vista Del Mar.
Stop trying to hide the accent, man. Just get Bob and Star. It's fine.
But it's not Bob. I want to make sure that people know
Bob
it's a woman named Barbara and a woman who goes by Star in Vista Del Mar.
Yeah, I got you.
By Harvard Yard.
They pack their cows 2 by each. I got you.
2 by each. So definitely recommend that. And then the Decker Saturday Classic. Do you want to take a guess? It's from 1950. It's a 1950s film.
Man.
Do you want to take a guess what we watched as a Decker Saturday Classic?
Did you finally do like Some Like It Hot or something to that effect?
We did Harvey.
Oh man, Harvey. All right.
The White Rabbit is a weird one, and
that ending, man. That last shot of that movie, it fucked me up when I was a kid.
I love it. I think that's fantastic, Siege. That's the happiest thing I've ever heard. What a great movie, and what a cool film in terms of like the way that the women are treated in that film is despicable. Like there's some real despicable things that happen to women. Like the main thing, spoilers for Harvey, is his sister tries to get him committed to a sanitarium and the doctor's like, well, obviously she's the crazy one and she's just trying to get her brother admitted before he can get her admitted. Please bring her upstairs. Like,
And that's supposed to be like the resolution, right?
that's like I mean that kicks off the whole second act, is that whole bit of it. And then the whole time the doctor's nurse assistant is like, no, I've met the guy. He should be here. She's legitimate. Everything is good. And he's like, not now, nurse. I'm the doctor. And it's one of those situations where you're like, oh my god, women are treated so poorly in this. But then you look at it, and it was written by Mary Chase, right? It's based on her play, and she worked on the screenplay for it. And very much, this is her trying to show how women are treated in society and how little voice they actually have.
Right, because we as the audience know that they are 100% correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh wow, like this hurts seeing what is happening, and then I'm like, way to go. Like this is the type of progressive stuff, and I didn't expect it in what is called a screwball comedy.
Yeah, man. I mean, not to bring the whole room down, but I mean, we're talking about in the time period where we see something like the Kennedys literally lobotomizing a daughter of theirs because they don't like her progressive attitude. Like
Yeah, no,
the idea of a woman getting sent to an insane asylum, like under the guise that she's going after a man, put her away. Like that is, yeah, no, man.
Meanwhile, the one who becomes president almost fucks the whole thing up because he's banging Marilyn Monroe. I mean, he kind of gets a frontal lobotomy too.
Oh,
just not the kind you surprise.
We went fully dark. There we go.
Well, no. You know what? I'm going to be honest. As someone who grew up in the New England area, in the shadow of Camelot, I'll fucks with the Kennedys any day of the week.
And that was the last we ever heard of Devin.
Fruit Brute, protect me. No, but seriously, Ted Kennedy killed that girl because he was drunk driving. I'll say it every day of the week and twice on Chappaquiddick Sunday.
Ooh.
Yeah, they're not good people. So you want to bring up that they lobotomized their daughter for trying to be a free-spirited woman? All fucking day. Am I there for that, Sejan?
Yeah, no, and so the idea, like, that we are watching this film, and with that concept in mind, that is the world that we are living in, and yeah, it's actually a horrific picture of the 1950s in America. Yeah,
and it's hidden in the guise of it's like it's a perfect example of what satire used to be and has always sort of meant to be, right?
Right.
Is where we're putting this on display so that you can go, oh fuck. That's not what's happening.
That's ridiculously funny until you think about it and realize, shit, that really happens.
I don't know. But then with the fact that it has been labeled a screwball comedy film, like I almost wonder, like I talk about all these films where the message is misinterpreted, like is Harvey a very early example of that? Where like I'm sure the people who saw it on stage, right, hopefully understood the satire of it, but just by the nature of what Hollywood is, I mean, the fact that James Stewart is not able to be shown taking a drink, where like the big question of his character is he like a crippling alcoholic, and because of that Harvey is a hallucination of that.
Well, so that's the other element to this, right? Is you allude to the fact that he's not allowed to take a drink, and that is because the way that Hollywood is also working at this time is there are literal laws in place about what can and can't be in film, and the idea of these kinds of movies also existing, that where they have to mask their larger progressive concepts in these other plots, these screwball comedies and things like that, by doing this sort of shit, right? They have to turn this into like a family-friendly, goofy thing where he's seeing an invisible rabbit everywhere, and isn't that the silliest thing that's ever happened? Meanwhile, the entire thing is actually this whole like tirade on the way that women are treated in 1950s culture. Like that they had to do it that way. Like until something like, what was it, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, that comes along and is just like, fuck the censors, right? Like that is the only way that those kinds of movies can get made. If you don't have the clout, if you don't have the standing to stand up to the literal actual censorship, people can cry 1984 all they want nowadays, but we used to have an actual governing board that would go in and remove pieces of film that they didn't think were that were good for the audiences to see. Like,
yeah, like that. That's one of those things where, like, the conspiracy theory that the nude scenes were removed from Psycho because projectionists would cut out a little piece to keep. That's a beautiful story, but, like, No, I'm pretty sure that they're like, we don't want nudity in this movie that everybody's seeing. Like, and then we make up this beautiful Hollywood level, the magic of cinema story that covers their asses on that. And it's just like, yeah, that's one of them. Also, in terms of conspiracy theories, with Kevin Feige and Joe Quesada on set on the Suicide Squad, I feel a little bit vindicated that maybe they were trying to torpedo the DCEU with the Suicide Squad. And, like, honestly, it could be the best thing that happens for the DCEU because they need to rise like a phoenix from the ashes. They need to burn all of the Snyder stuff down and rise up as something new and different. And that's what's going to happen. Sorry, I just thinking about all that. So then the final thing, right? Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster, right? I started it. I finished it. It's so good. Oh my God, support them. I know that the font is, like, people have a problem with the font. I don't know why. Like, I've someone who's beaten Final Fantasy 7 different ways now. Like, every release except for the MSX and the iOS mobile version of the game I have completed. And this one feels the most like the NES one, but with, like, certain modern conveniences, like fast forwarding auto battles.
To your question about why people are bitching about the font, it's because gamers with a capital G need something to fucking complain about. They remade an old game, Devin. If you thought they were going to sit back and just take that abuse, no, man. Like the. Yeah.
You bring up a good point, but it is very good. And playing through it again, you were my warrior. You were my highest leveled character, Sejin, and you were the only one who lived through the final boss fight. Everybody else died. You had the full 999 HP at level, I think, 58. Which, because they removed the level cap of 50, but still capped the stat caps. So it's like, why is he still gaining levels? It doesn't do anything.
You just love them numbers going up.
But you were the only one who survived the fight, and you're the reason that we won. So thank you, Sejun, for being my warrior. But also, I mean, they're out there. They're still technically on sale on Steam. If you're looking for a way to play some of the earlier ones, and specifically 1, 2, and 3, which are the ones that are available now, which have never really had great versions. Like even Final Fantasy 2, which I love. I think it's a great game. The whole stat thing of it is very hard to get into. They've done a pretty good job modernizing that as well. And I'm excited to do Final Fantasy 3 in actual 2D sprites. Because the 3D DS version, it has not aged well. Much like an N64 game from 1996.
I was going to say 1960. What are you doing?
I'm not supposed to reveal the truth.
Awesome, man. There's no like danger that they're not going to do 4, 5, and 6, right? Like, is this a thing where like we should support 1, 2, and 3 if we want 4, 5, and 6 to come out? Because I'll do that.
So they've already sold a bundle that is includes through 6, and there's a release date for them. I believe it's October 28th is when everything is supposed to be out. So by all accounts, they staggered it so that these games would get some love.
Yeah.
It's not one of those where like, well, I'm only going to buy 6. It's one of those, I guess I'll check out 1 because I've never played it. Yeah. So, I mean, that's it. I mean, that's it. I didn't want to just sing the praises of that game because it was super fun to go back to it. And like, it's worth it. So I think that's everything from me. I complained about the CW. Yeah, that's me. Anything else that you'd like to add before we wrap this one up?
No, my copy of the reprint of J.R.R. Tolkien's version of The Green Knight finally came in. It's super fucking nerdy. I love it. There's an introduction from Tolkien. There's an introduction from Christopher Tolkien, who picked up the torch after his father passed away in finalizing that. And then there's a introduction after that from the publisher, who then picked up the torch of actually getting the damn thing published after Christopher passed away. So before you even get into the poem itself, there's 3 introductions you should read through about the history of just trying to get this poem to the page. And then on top of that, you get Tolkien's poem. And then they also include 2 other pieces that Tolkien interpreted from Arthurian poetry. So like, it's just this phenomenally geeky, nerdy like collection of stuff about his version of the Green Knight and other stories. And we had brought it up, I think, a couple of weeks back about how I was looking forward to it, and it did finally come in, and I'm just enjoying the hell out of it.
Wonderful. That's awesome. I got the Disney Afternoon like comic collection.
Yeah.
And that's awesome. Finally being able to read the Soligo Crystal like crossover that goes through all of the Disney Afternoon shows that were airing at the time. Because I never got to read the last one because my subscription ended. So it's been great, and the other stuff that they put in there is just like peak Disney comics, and reminds me of how that's a whole different world unto itself, of just like beautiful knowledge. It's wonderful. It's just something fun to explore. And regarding what you just said, you know what? It's not important. If it were important, I'd remember it and not have to and ah until it comes to me. So I think we're good. I think we've covered everything. If you would like to suggest to Sejin more shows that you want to see streaming, that he can add to his crusade to get them out there and available, he's on Twitter at Siege versus the World.
And if there's ever any other serials you want to suggest to Devin, monster-based or otherwise, you can find him at Devin D. Decker.
I am a big fan of serials. Please recommend them to me. I will definitely try them. Oh, that's what I wanted to say. Brendan Fraser's going to be in Flowers of the Killing Moon?
Yeah, I know. And I've got some theories about it, but I want to wait until we know a little bit more, / I'm thinking about rereading the book, because he has been cast extremely late in the process. We've already seen stills and images of DiCaprio and things like that, and a lot of the Native American actors and actresses that are involved have been very vocal about what filming has been like for months, if not a year at this point. So it was very interesting to see Deadline announce his casting last week. So my boy is going to be in my movie. I'm very excited. Yeah. So we'll talk about what that might mean with him being cast so late and things like that.
Yeah, it was just exciting for you, and I wanted to make sure you got that praise for it.
I think he's going to have a really fucking awesome part in that story if my theory is correct about why he's been cast so late. There is a particular role that would not require other people to be there that would be amazing if he was in it. So, yeah, we'll talk about it.
Excellent. All right. So without further ado, William, please drag us home.
Thank you for listening to the Say Report with your host Devin Decker and Sejin Serwick. Please follow the guys on Twitter and Facebook by searching for The Say Report, and you can always subscribe on your podcast channel so this is delivered straight to you and you can enjoy it every week. With apologies to your mother, we'll see you next time.